Well, it's a great honour to be the treasurer of UKIP. Well, I say it's an honour, but it does make me the most unpopular speaker at the conference because all I ever do is to ask you for more money. Right. Now, the big parties are terrified of UKIP, and they are quite right. They are quite right to be terrified, and it is essential that we keep them terrified. Why is that essential? Well, why did we get Cameron's promise of a referendum? In both cases, the answer is pressure. We kept pressure on him, and that's why we got it. We've got to keep up the pressure on the Conservatives, but we also have to keep a lot of pressure on Labour and the Lib Dems. Why must we keep pressure on the Labour Party and the Lib Dems? Well, I was a bookmaker in my previous incarnation, and so I watched these things. Before Cameron's famous speech, in which he so-called offered a referendum, the bookmakers were laying 3-1 against the Conservatives getting an overall majority in the next general election. Now we've had the speech. To start with, it was rather well received. But what do you think the odds are now? They are now 4-1 against an overall majority for the Conservative Party. Now, if you believe the speech, we need to have an overall Conservative majority in order to get the referendum which we so badly want. And even if he defies the odds and gets it, do we trust Mr. Cameron? Do you remember what happens on the Lisbon Treaty, a cast iron guarantee? And I have to say, I think there's a real chance that if the Conservatives do get their overall majority, we still will not get a referendum. Yeah. But there is another possibility on the plus side. The Labour Party at the moment is saying that if they've come to power, there will not be a referendum. Well, if we keep the pressure on them, I think there's quite a good chance that they will realise that they're not going to win the election unless they do promise that referendum. And that's why we have to keep pressure on them. Now, what does pressure mean? In effect, for a political party, the only thing that brings pressure on them is the danger from their point of view that they may lose votes. Now, how did we get so many votes in Eastleigh as we did? A fantastic triumph. Several reasons. First of all, we had a wonderful leader in Nigel Farage, a wonderful candidate in Diane James, and a wonderful and incredibly hard-working group of activists led by Lisa Duffy. But it was more than that, of course. The voters decided, and you can tell this from Lord Ashcroft's polls. He polled 20,000 UKIP voters, by the way, to see why they voted UKIP. And he's published the results, and that saved us a lot of money. Anyhow, it turned out that the voters believe we are right not just on the European Union, but on many policies, in particular immigration, the economy, and law and order. But he found something even more interesting. It wasn't policies that were the main reason why people voted UKIP. It was because we cared about people. We did not involve ourselves in political correctness. We spoke in a way they could understand. They thought we understood people like them. And above all, they thought that UKIP, unlike the other parties, spoke the truth. But this brings me on to what I have to mention as treasurer. The other reason we did well in Eastleigh is that we were able, or anyhow we did, spend a lot of money there. we spent over £80,000, more than we've ever spent on any other by-election. And the reason we spent more, apart from the fact that it was very important, of course, was that we anticipated that there would be a by-election there. That was fairly clear. And so a letter went out to every voter, I think, in the whole constituency from Nigel Farage before the election was even called. We got in first. And Nigel believes, and he's a good judge, we'd have got about 15% without that. With it, we got, as you know what we got, 27.8%. Now, that shows you how expensive by-elections can be. And in the second half of a parliament, as people get older, more MPs die, and there are more by-elections. And again, we will want to anticipate them and send out letters. It's an expensive business. Then we've got the 2nd of May local elections. They are very important in themselves, of course. How local government is done is important. But also, the more seats you can get, it works in a mysterious way, but it turns out you do much, much better in those areas in subsequent, even more important elections. And that's why we're have spent or have pledged an enormous amount of money to billboard advertising in front of those elections. That's very expensive. Then we have the EU elections in June next year. And it's very, very critical that we do well there. As you know, we hope to win, and we may win. But it's no certainty, and we need to spend a hell of a lot of money on it to give us the best chance. Finally, of course, the Westminster elections. We can get MPs in my opinion, in 2015, but it will cost a lot of money. I have backed my opinion. I've had a bet that we will get MPs in 2015. I believe we will. But we must, I'm afraid, have even more of your money than you've been kind enough to give us in the past. Now, in a moment, Mark Harland will be making a very important announcement about the sovereign draw. So please, if you're not already a user of that very exciting service, please consider it very carefully. And then Graham Knappman will be on about something which I've been on about before, but not with any great success. But he's a solicitor. He will tell you why it's so important to have a will, and he will help you to do it at a discount. Now, as you will have gathered from the conference, UKIP has an absolutely huge opportunity at the moment. And as somebody said to me the other day, if we get out of Europe, out of the EU, I should say, if we get out of the EU, that may well be the biggest single important political event in the first half of the 21st century. But please, we do need your money. I'm doing my best. I don't have anything like as much money as I had before, but I'm doing my best. Please, will you all try if you can give a little bit more than you have before. And I just finally want to end up by reminding you of what Lisa Duffy said. If every member of our party gave £5 every time there was a by-election, because we have so many more members now, that would mean over £100,000 for a by-election, and for other expenses as well. If you can afford more than that, fine. But at least consider giving us a £5 next time a by-election's called. Thank you.